Welcome to On Deck, Conversations That Matter. Today, I'm joined with someone who I've known my entire life, my dad, Ric Ashby, the owner of the Ashby Realty Group in Mesa, Arizona. Would you like to add anything?
About myself, proud dad of 8 kids, and Clay is our 7th, and super proud of him and his desire to grow and to start this podcast. So super proud of him. Like you said, I'm the owner of a company called Ashby Realty Group. I've been in real estate now for about 26 years. Got my real estate license in '99. Started my company in 2004, I believe. And so the company's been up and running for almost 22 years now. At one point, I had about 70 agents working for me, and I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit, but there's got to be a balance in life between work and your personal life, and I've finally found that after 25 years or so. So I'm excited to be interviewed by you and answer some questions.
Okay. Looking back, what advice would you give your 17-year-old self?
What advice would I give myself? Probably to avoid sweating the small stuff. Not worry about things and don't let them just overtake you. Especially in business, there's always going to be hiccups. There's always going to be things that seem like they're insurmountable or really setting you back, and they're not. Those are just learning experiences. They give you opportunities for growth. I've always told you kids this as well. What do I learn most from? What have I always told you?
You learn more from your mistakes than your failures.
More from my mistakes and failures than from my successes. And that's the truth. So gives perspective that way. Also, another thing I would add too is one of the things I would add is to always try to look for the good in others and stay away from cynicism. Try to look for the good in others and realize that there's good there and try to cultivate that when you're working with people and even interacting with people. Look for the good.
That's interesting. Do you think you would have listened?
Yes, I do, actually. I think if I could be called out and corrected, maybe for some of my past mistakes, it would give me something at least to focus on when I get in those situations the next time and try to go ahead and apply that advice. The earlier you apply that kind of advice, the better. One, you'll grant grace for people. Everyone needs grace. Everyone's looking for, a little bit of forgiveness in their lives, right? And that can actually create bonding and create friendships. Where the divisiveness happens is when we are cynical and we're hard on others, right? They put a wall up. That does not create friendships. It can create animosity and stifle relationships. What could be beautiful relationships.
Thank you for that. I really like what you said there about trying to cultivate relationships instead of putting up a wall.
Yeah.
What's something people my age worry way too much on and spend way too much of their time worrying about?
Oh, at 17, girls. Girls. I love girls, and that's an awesome thing. But at 17, the advice I would give you and your audience is don't waste your money on somebody else's wife. That's the advice I would give. In all honesty, dating and all those things are wonderful, but realize that dating at that age, you're actually cultivating relationships and learning how to go ahead and communicate. So when you find that right one, you'll know. And you'll know how to treat her. So a little bit tongue-in-cheek, don't waste your money on somebody else's wife. There's a little bit of truth to that, but honestly, I think I wasted a lot of time at 17 and 18 years old on girls or trying to impress girls. Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true. It's probably better to keep that money in my bank account than waste it on girls.
Not waste, but maybe invest it in your future versus somebody else's wife.
Yes, so that ties into another question I would like to hit on. What advice would you give someone who's maybe 16 to 20 about being a leader in general and how to focus on their future?
And focus on their future. I would probably advise them to choose good friends, not follow the crowd, but follow those, one that you admire, find a mentor. And when I say mentor, it doesn't need to be somebody your age. It could be somebody a little older, somebody that you perhaps admire and look up to and want to maybe be like and pattern your life after, and base it on their core beliefs and their core principles, the way that they treat others, right? Their integrity and their honesty. If you can go ahead and pattern your life after somebody like that, you'll be far ahead. I have an uncle that I looked up to growing up, that I saw how people loved him and respected him and how he treated others and loved others. And I always just admired him for that. I still do to this day. Uncle Fred. He's just one of those guys that is just easy to be around and easy to love. It's because he loved others, just unconditionally, just showed love to people. So I would say that probably find a mentor and make sure you surround yourself with good people that are going to lead you upwards and not downwards.
What's something that you believed in at 17 years old and it turned out to be completely wrong?
This is a little bit political, but believing that one side of the aisle is always right and the other side is always wrong. I've come to realize that that's not accurate, that there is good in all people, and depending on people's perspectives, and there's a great saying that I love, and you've heard me say this before, and it's this. It says, but for the grace of God go I, meaning if I was to see someone in a certain situation and their life is in a different position than mine, right? They're struggling with something, or they've made some decisions that may have impacted their future in a negative way, or may just not be where I want to be. If you look at that perspective and say, but for the grace of God go I, meaning I could be in that situation if I was put in their situations, right? If I made the same choices they have made in their lives, I could be there as well. So it's super important for us to make sure that we make good decisions. We've all been given agency, the ability to choose, right? But those choices all have natural consequences, always do. So to make sure that we make good choices, right? And make sure that as we make those choices that we govern ourselves. But when we talk about the divide, especially that we have in our nation, which is so unfortunate, the other side of the aisle, whatever side of the aisle you're on, the other side is not bad or wicked or evil or mean or hateful necessarily. That group is not. There's individuals that may cast themselves that way, but we need to love everybody. We need to love and see the other side of people's opinions, right? And show grace. And if we do that, we're able to heal not only as a community and a family, but as a nation, and then eventually, honestly, as a world. We're all human. We all make mistakes. The importance is to be able to show that grace and forgiveness and love others. So I think the long route back to the question that you asked of what I believe that was wrong is believing that I'm always right, that my views, right, are always right, not just politically, but the other way around. So it's really important to learn to listen first, and then to respond after you have a chance to process the information. My great grandma used to always say, you have two ears and one mouth for a reason. We need to listen twice as much as we speak. Something I have a difficult time with because I like to talk, but I think that there's wisdom in there.
Yes. So would you say that when you were younger, you had a little bit of a confirmation bias for certain aspects?
Yeah, for sure. And most of that comes out dependent on your surroundings, right? What I know is to be normal, especially at 17, because I hadn't had a lot of world experience, a lot of life experience, I expected that to be the same with everybody, right? You only know what you know. And as you get a little bit older, you learn a little bit more and you get a little wiser.
So when was the first time that you realized that not your opinion isn't always correct and that there are other opinions that you might not hold that also could be right depending on people's views?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to take it a different perspective. When I was 19 through 21, I served as a missionary, as you know, right? And I served as my missionary service in an area in Canada, eastern coast of Canada. So Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, Newfoundland, New Brunswick. And while I was in Brunswick, actually I take that back, I was in Nova Scotia, we became good friends with some people and that we were teaching. And it was a it was a family that the wife was white and the husband was black. And I was raised in Gilbert, Arizona. That's just what it was. And our school was all white, all Mexican, and we had 2 black students in our class. And I still remember them. Super great guys. Lamar and Malcolm, both just super cool guys. But anyways, I had always been taught by my parents that when we refer to blacks, we don't refer to them as blacks, we call them colored. Once again, this is early 80s, right? And when I met my friend Rodney up in Canada, and I referred to something about colored or something like that, his wife said, "Oh, no, we don't, that's not appropriate. That's not what we say." And I was really embarrassed because all I knew was that's what we called it, right? And I don't know if it wasn't to be mean or insensitive in any way. It was just what I knew. So I only knew that as a response. That's just what I knew, right? And I realized that was wrong. It was really embarrassing for me. And, since that time, I've tried to be a little bit more cautious the way that I word things because I don't want to go out and offend or hurt anybody's feelings, right? So that was my first take on that.
What's a financial lesson that you wish you would have learned when you were 17?
Money sitting in a savings account is never going to get you wealthy. It's just not. Invest early. Learn to invest early, even if it's $20 a month, if it's $100 a month, whatever it is. Make sure that it's palatable. It doesn't hurt you, but make sure it's enough that you feel it and you know what you're doing is you're throwing that towards your future. There's a rule in finance called the rule of 72. I don't know if you've ever heard of that before, but basically what it is, it says, all right, whatever interest rate you're being offered, right? Say it's 6%. You take 72 and divide it by that number, and that gives you the amount of years it will take to be able to double your money. So for instance, with the rule of 72, if you're getting 6%, which is a really high rate of return right now, there's no banks that I'm aware of that are even offering that right now. It would take you 12 years to double your money. 12 years, it's a long time. But that $20 in extra trips to Circle K or whatever a month, I'd rather have that going towards my future, right, than the alternative of throwing that money away. I remember seeing this really great article that was written about this guy who was actually a janitor at a school. And when he retired a millionaire. A millionaire as a janitor of a school, yes. And they asked him what he did. He said he started investing early and often. And it wasn't a lot, but it was little bits. And they said, how did you have that extra money being on a salary of a janitor? And his response was, I didn't even own a cell phone. So he saved himself $30 a month or $40 a month, whatever it was, for the cheapest that way. He was very frugal with his money, but always made sure the first and most important thing is his retirement account was funded each year. And now he's a millionaire and able to go ahead and live off the interest and live a good life the remainder of his days. I thought that was really interesting. So ultimately, it's not what you make, it's what you save.
Do you think most people learn that too late?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. I learned it too late as well. I was raised in a household. My dad was a doctor. Mom was a stay-at-home mom. We always had enough. Never big excesses at all. But I just remember coming around to tax season and my dad always being stressed having to go ahead and pay taxes. And one of the things that he was raised in a military family. Dad was off at war most of the time and fighting. He was a Air Force fighter pilot and off at war. So we didn't have a whole lot of background or education on finance. My dad didn't. And therefore I wasn't given that growing up. And so I just remember as a kid just realizing I don't ever want to be in a position where I have to admit to my kids that I don't have the money to be able to pay for my taxes, or I don't have the money to be able to go and do something with my family. And it was something that was instilled in me at that age. I just never wanted to deal with that. And I need to do what it took for me to be able to not be in that position. And something you're aware of is one of the things that we've taught our kids. If you have the ability, you pay cash for it. You don't go into debt. You don't borrow for anything. I mean, when you start out, so you might have to go and get a car loan. And you start off with a family, you're going to probably have to go out and get your mortgage. But after you get that, no consumer debt, and as fast as you can pay off that car and drive that thing until it's in the dirt. Way too many times do we see people, friends, have to have a newer car all the time. I drive around in a 2011 BMW 335. My wife drives around in a 2012 BMW X5. We've got other cars. We got some fun stuff. But those are our two cars. My car has 213,000 miles on it right now. You know the car, right? Do I love driving it?
Yeah.
I love driving this car. It makes me happy. I do a ton of miles. I do probably 3,000 miles to 4,000 miles a month on my car. But we just pay cash when we buy cars. It's not a big deal. And then we just, take care of the maintenance. And then once they're past their prime, we can go and get rid of them and pay cash for that. I would say this as well. And I want to make sure that people understand this. The importance of paying off your mortgage as fast as you can is really important. And I think critical to having wealth as you get older. Most people take out a 30-year mortgage, and that's the common theme right now. They're actually talking about, like Europe right now, they have 40-year mortgages. They're talking about extending those out so kids and young people can actually afford a mortgage. I just can't imagine a 40-year mortgage hanging over somebody's head their whole life. But it'll probably happen. But that doesn't mean it needs to be paid off over 30 years or 40 years. That doesn't mean that. You take a little extra every month and add it to that principal. They say that if you can go ahead and make one extra payment a year, so 13 payments a year instead of 12, it'll cut down like 8 or 9 years on your mortgage. That's how much interest you're wasting. So we've been fortunate to be out of the mortgage race for quite some time. But it's because we've been very deliberate with our planning and utilizing our funds that way. It's been a huge blessing too. I've really encouraged my friends, family members as well about that. And in no way is this a braggadocious statement. It's not that way at all. It's just encouraging others to realize, man, you can have so much more if you can go ahead and prioritize your funds and where they go. And I've had 2 or 3 friends of mine actually call, and family members call and say, hey, guess what? We just paid off our mortgage. I mean, that's just the coolest thing in the world, just hearing that, just like, man, yeah. I just remember when we paid ours off, when we paid off our home, and the sky is just a little bluer. Like the birds chirp, they're singing just a little prettier. It's just, life is so good. You can wake up in the morning without that debt hanging over your head and just breathe. I remember when we were first married, and I'm going back a little bit, my wife and I would have 21-cent date nights because we were so broke. We would do anything we could just to be able to find like a quarter. I know this sounds ridiculous, but like find just a little change. And we would drive to McDonald's, and McDonald's had mini ice cream cones for 10 cents each. And with tax at the time, 2 mini cones was 21 cents. That was our date night. Many, many times I went to the ATM as a young married man to get $20 out to either go get for lunch or for date night, and the screen would say insufficient funds. No lie. Many, many times. So we've been broke before. I remember when I first started in real estate, we'll get to that story.
When was a time that you failed, and what did it teach you?
Time I failed. Okay. When we were first married, we had been married a few years. I think we were probably had 2 children at the time. I had gone to work for a large automobile dealership and thought that would be cool because I really loved cars. Always have really enjoyed cars, and realized I hated the business. I just hated it. I just didn't have a good experience with the people I was working with. I didn't have a good experience with what I was told to say to people to be able to have them buy cars. And I hated it so bad, I just up and quit one day and didn't have anything to turn to. And I realized, you know what, I've done the car thing. I've learned a little bit about the car business. I'm gonna go and start my own gig. So I started a little used car lot and thought that I would be able to do it differently and better where I could be happy, and realized that was a huge mistake because I didn't have a passion for what I was doing. I was doing it because it felt like I was trapped and that's all I knew. And so I was in this predicament where I was taking this business, trying to grow it, not happy with what I was doing, wasn't fulfilled, carried this dark cloud around me all the time because it just wasn't what I loved, right? And then a brother-in-law of mine, great guy, he called me one day and knew that I'm a pretty organized guy. I'm a little bit type A, but I'm a little OCD as well, so I really like things in order, as you know. And he called me one day, and he was a full-time law enforcement officer and had his real estate license. And he said, "Hey, Rick, I've got these files I'm working with. I'm too busy. It's just not my thing. I want you to organize these files, and I want you to, then I'll pay you 10% when they close. Pay 10% of the earnings that he made." And I said, "Okay, that's fine. While I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life, let me go ahead and do this." And so I started organizing his files and realized this. In that next month, I ended up with a check with $3,000. Now this is back in the late 90s. And I'm not a genius, but 10%, and I got $3,000, and it might have been a month or two anyways. And I thought, okay, wait a minute. This guy is a full-time police officer. Part-time, he's doing real estate. And I made $3,000, he made 30. And I said, I was in the car business. I literally carried a gun with me to work, right? Just because. And had been yelled at by people, it's just part of the business. It's just part of the game. Yet I look at him and his clients love him. Like they just appreciate all the work he's doing, and they're kind to him and they're respectful to him. He's respectful to them. And I said, that's what I want. That's what I want to do. And so I talked to him about it. When I got my real estate license, we worked for the first 4 or 5 years together, and then I decided to go ahead and start the business, and then he came to work for me, and the rest is history. So I would say, honestly, if you feel trapped, if you're not happy with what you do, maybe don't do what I did, and just up and quit, but start looking for other opportunities. It's something that you can be passionate about. If you can do something that can pay your bills and you can be passionate about, you'll never work a day in your life. And I truly feel like I don't work. I love what I do. Like it is the greatest thing for me. I get to be able to work when my clients need me. They're appreciative. If you work and take care of other people's needs, and this is a life lesson, not just in real estate, but this is a life lesson. If you take care of other people's needs before yours, you'll always have. You'll have what you need. When I train new agents that come into this business, it can be really difficult for them or challenging sometimes for them to go ahead and get out of their own way and realize, hey, I need to find a way to be able to make money for myself, right, for my family. So they really overdo it sometimes or push too hard, maybe their clients, to make decisions. And I've told them, I said, as soon as you put your commission before your client's needs, you are out of business. You're out of business. You need to put other people's needs there. And if you do that, you'll go ahead and get your compensation. And it's always worked that way for us and our family and our business.
Thank you so much for that. Hopefully the audience could apply that to their own lives as well. I would like to ask you this. If you had $0 and no connections to people, what was the first thing you would start doing?
Ooh, $0, no connections. Try to find ways to be able to get start interacting with people. Start serving others without expectations. Start maybe joining some clubs, attend church groups, attend church, get to know people, get into some circles there, and to be able to just start networking. Networking is the most important thing. It's been a blessing in my life, not just financially, but the relationships. So I would say start networking quick and sincerely, and don't do it with an end game in mind. Go in and just try to serve and love others, and good things happen. It might sound silly, but it really does. Good things happen.
What separates successful people from everyone else?
Desire, wanting more, just wanting more out of life. I've always wanted more out of life, and it's never been a number in a bank account for me. It just hasn't. That has just not been what's driven me. It's been more just being busy and feeling like I'm being successful and helpful. I had a good friend of mine. This is probably 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago, getting close to 20 years ago, 15, 20 years ago. We were driving in a car one day, And he said, Rick, when's enough? Like he was getting on me a little bit. And this is when I was building my business and everything full steam ahead, working huge hours. It's before you were around. And he said, when's enough? And it caught me for a little bit. And for me, I wanted more. And I was on that path of I wanted to be successful for me. I wasn't doing it for anybody else. I was doing it for us and our family, right? But I think it's drive. I think it's motivation. It's wanting more. And once again, your more may be different than my more. But mine was to be able to have the ability to be able to do what I want when I want. I always hated the idea of having somebody tell me, one, what I'm worth hourly. I hated that. And what I have to do when I have to do it, right? This is my life. I wanted to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it. And of course that teaches me the ability to be able to give up what I want for the betterment of my family, right? That sacrifice is super important. We all need to learn sacrifice for others. But the ability for me to be able to figure out what drives me and makes me passionate about things, it helped define me and the way I treated others. It just always has. But I think that people that get down on others for wanting more, in my opinion, I think they've let their dreams die in a way. And I think that's a thing that I would encourage your audience and your listeners. Don't let your dreams die. You're always going to have setbacks, but always reach, always stride. I had a client of mine very recently say something that was very poignant to me. And they were referring to a place in Arizona, and that it came up. And they said, the place where dreams go to die. That's what they referred to this place as. And I go, whoa, that is just powerful and awful at the same time, right? It's a place where people just go to just give up. And I'm like, man, oh man, I don't ever want to be a part of that. So anyways, that was just like a month ago, somebody said that to me, and it really it hit me. It made a statement with me. It's just, don't ever give up. It's interesting to me also that you find that people that retire and say, I'm going to retire and I'm going to be done, I'm going to live the good life, they don't last much longer. Their life expectancy actually is reduced when they retire, because I think it's because they don't have anything really to continue to push and grow and go after.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate your insight. So if you were me, what would you spend the next 5 years going full steam ahead on?
Next 5 years, I would probably say you need to read good books. Focus on reading good. And if you don't like reading, I am not a reader, but I love podcasts. I love listening to books on tape. That's my thing. In my commutes, I love focusing on things like that. Listen to things that will build you, that'll expand your mind, help you go ahead and reach your full potential. Positive books, building books. It really depends on the passion. If you're thinking about trying to, especially at your age, when you're trying to figure out what you want to do when you get out into the workforce, be open to different ideas and different opportunities to maybe mirror or be around people that have different employment options, different career choices, and be aware of other things that are out there. When I was 18, I worked for a company called Rockford Fosgate. They were the number one car audio company in the world at the time. This was back in the late 80s. And that's all I knew. That's really all I knew. My dad was a chiropractor. There's some people that were builders in our area. Some other people had some other jobs, and then there was that. I didn't know a lot, right? Hadn't had a whole lot of interaction with people outside that. I think the best thing to do is look for opportunities to be able to enlarge your circle of influence and find opportunities and find career paths perhaps that excite you. But read and study. Read.
Yeah, I definitely need to read more. I mean, we all need to read more.
Yeah.
Especially coming up on the next 5 years where we really expand on what we want to pursue.
Yeah.
If you could teach me one thing before I turn 25, what would it be?
Be honest. Be honest. Be painfully honest. And I don't mean to a point where being honest where it hurts people's feelings. I mean, be honest in your life. Integrity. Make sure that you're honest with people in your personal life, especially in your business life. Be 100% honest. Sometimes it can hurt. Sometimes there's letdowns when we're honest, but be honest. Always be known as that person that has character and that has integrity.
Thank you. As a leader, how do you help others to reach their potential?
As a leader, I think for me, it's be accessible. Being accessible, I think, is really important. Being positive, being a builder of people, focusing on their strengths. Everybody has different strengths, right? Everybody. Especially as you interact with others, you'll find that people have strengths that they're probably exceed your own or my own. And those are things you need to go ahead and focus and really build them up on that. You are so good at interacting with people. You're so good with keeping your appointments. You're so good with making sure that you research out problems and you come up with solutions. You're so good. You're so good. You're so good. Minimize the negativity. If it needs to be called out, do it lovingly and let them know, hey, there's some things perhaps that we could do a little bit better. And then at the end of that, after you have that opportunity to be able to share with them things that you see, give them ideas on how they can correct it and tell them they're doing awesome. Always make sure that you leave one of those interactions on a positive note. You don't ever want somebody exiting an interaction with you. I don't care if it's just saying hi at the local grocery store or if you're in an interview. Always make sure that they're walking away with a positive perception on how that meeting went. You want to build people. That's our job, is to build and lift people up.
Dad, thank you for your insight.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And thank you for sharing your experiences in your life and how to better help our audience achieve their dreams.
You're welcome. Love you.
This has been On Deck. Thank you for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and maybe share this to someone who could really benefit from this conversation. Thank you.